Hey everybody, welcome to another Making a Geek. I am Damien DiCarlo. I am joined with Mr. Kai Patterson. Kai, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well, and I'm really doing well now because James is also here. James Creviston, hi.
How's it going? Batman time. Let's do
It
this.
is Batman time, guys. I am super excited about this one. This is yet again another entry in our Christopher Nolan marathon, if you will. We have been going through each one of his films, kind of picking it apart, getting some of your comments, you listeners, and seeing what you had to say about it. But we have now crossed this threshold of the Batman franchise in 2005 when we had yet again another Batman. This was Batman Begins by Christopher Nolan. This serves as a Batman reboot for all intents and purposes. And of course, when we watched this, we had, I'm sure, very different thoughts than what we do now, whether it be good, bad, or possibly it might be the exact same thought as we had before. So I'll just get it started. We're going to do a full review. Obviously, there's spoilers if you haven't seen this. I If you haven't seen this movie, what is wrong with you? Seriously, come on out there. You need to watch this movie. um,
Yeah, if you
guys,
haven't
what
seen
were
this, and why are you listening to this podcast?
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
you're not a full geek. I mean, come on. So let's be real about this. Guys, what were some of your impressions when we thought of doing this and now we're finally getting to a Batman reboot? What are your impressions regarding now? Let's pick apart the release in 2005. That's the cast, the characters that were chosen for this film. James, what were some of your thoughts in 2005 when this one's coming out?
So I was really excited because I had always been a big Batman fan. I had watched, Batman Returns, those two original ones. Then they went into, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, all that stuff. And those got to like too campy, too silly. And I was like, I want something dark. I want like a dark Batman. And I like the original ones of Michael Keaton. They were dark, but they weren't like dark. They were still kind of a little campy in some ways. But I was like, I want this dark Batman. And then the first like trailer that I saw was with Christian Bale as Batman, as he's like hanging out on the thing and he's talking like this. He's got the dark talk. And I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is Batman. And that was it for me. Like he won me over right away. I always say Christian Bale is now my favorite Batman. No one will ever be a better Batman than him. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong to other people, but to me, he's the best.
I am just happy they didn't have nipples on the suit. That's what I was thrilled about. There was no tight butt armor
Yeah.
and nipples. To me, I
It's a
totally
shame.
agree. That it's a shame. Wait a minute. Are you telling me you actually enjoyed Batman and Robin? You're like, hell no.
Oh
Although
no.
I did see that one recently, and I still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It's Batman on ice for me. It's just yeah.
Yes.
um, but yeah, I totally agree with you, James. I definitely remember seeing in 2005 the trailer was done really well because it's weird. I can't remember what movie I saw with it, but I this was a time when the internet obviously was around, but it wasn't to the degree that we have now. Trailers, full access, like the way we do. Social media wasn't at all a thing from my recollection. No, it wasn't in 2005. If it was just maybe like a picture thing where you could share albums. But um, when I saw the teaser to this movie, I should say, when I saw the teaser to this film, it was a very subtle teaser. It was just Christian Bale talking. It was him saying stuff about his character, who he is, and you're seeing these clips of Bruce Wayne going through the mountains and wherever this was and the snowy hills, and then you saw the Bat logo, and I nearly just my jaw just dropped. I couldn't believe that whatever epicness was just being shown was a Batman film, and that 2005 release when that came out, the voice, like you said at the time, I felt like, well, okay, this is it's going good. It's going good. I had no idea who Christopher Nolan was. I had no idea what,
Same.
you know what I mean? So for me, it was just like you're going in the right direction is all I thought. Uh, Kai, in 2005, when you saw this movie, impressions of the same, what did you, whether, cast, release,
Yeah.
all of that?
Well, I can already tell. I think I'm going to be the bad guy this episode. But First of all, in 2005, I was
If you
10
say you're
years
like
old.
10 years old, I'll be mad.
I was
So
10 years old.
You
So,
youngin.
I honestly, I don't know if I saw this movie in theaters.
wow.
I think the introduction that I had to this Batman series was probably on DVD for Batman Begins, and then I think I saw Dark Knight in theaters, and that changed my whole world.
Right.
So Batman Begins to me is an okay film and never really grabbed me. But when we get to Dark Knight, man, I'm going to be going off because I also just saw that in theaters this weekend again, and oh my god,
Yeah.
oh,
Wow.
so good, so good.
In honor of
But
Batman Day,
yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
yeah, so 10-year-old me was, I think, more concerned with like Pirates of the Caribbean and Star Wars, which I think also both of those came out in 2005. Or wait, I know Star Wars Episode 3 came out in
Yeah, it's
2005.
episode 3. But I was disappointed in that. That one I was like, no. So Batman had to
Oh
redeem it for
man,
me. It's not. I'm sorry.
it's
I mean, it's
nostalgic for me because I was a kid.
I gotcha. Well, it's no
Yeah,
episode 1. Episode 1's the worst one of all time. But
fair.
still, episode 3, I was like, come on, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
But this Batman though changed how people saw Batman, because before Batman was always there's always, we had like the Adam West Batman, and we had, even though like the ones that we had in the 80s and early 90s of Michael Keaton were really kind of dark, they were still silly, right? Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, and like it was just kind of campy, but it was still good. Then they added like Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and I was like, come on, man, what are you guys doing? And then Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. I'm like, what are we doing with our lives right now? And it kind of made me lose faith in Batman. Seriously, I lost faith in like them making a good Batman movie. I was like, well, they're never going to be able to do this. And then that trailer drops. You see, actually, in this movie, I don't know if you guys notice it. When he's Batman, he has fangs. He has small fangs. You can see them a little bit in his teeth when he's on the. When he's
No. Christian Bale just naturally has fangs.
Oh, he does?
I'm not kidding. He does have
He
like
does?
these. Yeah.
Oh.
If you ever see him smile, he looks like a bat or like a vampire.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I thought it was
crazy.
only for the movie because I don't think I've ever noticed it before.
No.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
there you
he's
go.
always had this kind of smile.
He's
You know what's really
perfect for the
funny
part.
about Christian Bale? Because see, when I was on board with this, not only with the epicness of the tone, I already in the trailer, I had seen Christian Bale in one other film called Equilibrium, and this one came out in about 2003.
It was the Matrix knockoff.
Matrix knockoff style, and I enjoyed it. I actually really liked it at the time.
Same.
So for me, I was like, this guy's gonna be Batman. I figured it was just gonna be perfect. The rest of the cast, let's get into like where the movie did very well, in my opinion. I think single-handedly, I'm just gonna say Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman saved the franchise. They saved it. I'm not gonna give credit to Christian Bale. As much as I love the guy, when you saw those two actors come on for this, I'm like, I get the caliber of what you're doing here. I get where you're trying to be here.
I would also say Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman as Gordon probably
Yes.
was one of the best picks ever.
Absolutely.
So those three, and that's funny because they're like the oldest characters in the entire film and franchise, yet they hold it together. Michael Caine is the best Alfred we've ever had. Like when I think of Alfred, he's the one I always think of. I think they even draw Alfred as Michael Caine in Batman comic books now because of that. They used to draw him that like skinnier Alfred, like the more Britishy one, but I've seen a couple comic books where he looks more like Michael Caine now. So maybe that's an influence there.
You had some major epic actors. You had Gary Oldman, you had Morgan Freeman, and Michael Caine. And I think that those, and I had forgotten for a short bit Gary Oldman only because of the fact that I feel that he is an amazing actor, Gary Oldman. I feel that his role was so small in comparison to other films. If you've ever seen Leon the Professional or any of these other movies, it's like, whoa, this guy is insanely good. But not to knock him at all. He did fantastic as Gordon. It's just, I felt like he's such a seasoned actor that it's almost like he could play any of these roles. And where I think, again, this movie did so well was casting, getting this bar raised for who was to be on this roster of a film. What are your thoughts on the cast? Kai, what do you think looking back, since you were 10 years old at the time, but now that you look at the film now, you're like, oh, this
Yeah, I
person
mean
was in it.
it is kind of crazy, like because I was a kid and I didn't really like, big actors and whatever, it didn't really matter to me. It was just like, you watch a story because you're watching the story. Now as an adult, like when I watch movies and I have history with the actors and stuff, and but when I was a kid, it was just like, oh, these were the people that were meant to be in this movie. And like now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine being Nolan, going from his last movie to this movie and having the cast he has. Like now looking back at it, I'm like, that's insane. Like he upped all of the uh celebrity status of all of his cast in
Right,
this one, and I think he was finally probably ready to direct the actors of that caliber too.
right,
Not saying Al Pacino, isn't at that caliber too, but like Morgan Freeman, like he just had so much more to work with, I feel like. And especially in something like a superhero movie, which like in 2005, it was like the biggest ones were like what Spider-Man.
Mhm.
So it's so like it's pretty insane that he got the cast that he got, and they fit so well in the world, which is
Right.
also sometimes strange. Now it's a little different with like MCU movies and stuff. Like we expect to see huge celebrities in a tiny, tiny role at the end of the credits, like,
right.
Yeah.
but for this time, like it was kind of weird. I feel like, well, maybe not. I mean, you had like George Clooney and stuff in the other
Can't
Batman
get weirder
movies,
than
but
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like I feel like this was different just because it was like it was
Huh.
it was making a real attempt to be serious. Like let's take this world seriously.
Yeah.
Right,
And we're not just throwing in celebrities as a cameo joke. We're throwing in celebrities for their raw talent to
right.
really bring this to screen. And I think that was really cool.
And I
Yeah.
kind of
There
see
was no there
that.
was no Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face type thing going on
Oh
with him.
Yeah.
God.
Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I can
Yeah.
see this trend now. I mean, I can see this trend now with Nolan that I was just talking to my girlfriend about this, how like he chooses these actors no matter whether he thinks that they'll fit a sexy role as Catwoman or if they're going to be comic book accurate. He just wants them to be the best kind of acting for his type of movie. And I wouldn't say for any movie, I would just say his type, because he has a certain type of film, as we know, going into these films we've been, dicing and slicing apart here. And for these actors, I think this was in a phenomenal world to create a Batman. And I think that if it makes sense to say this, I don't think Nolan approached this as a superhero movie as much as he just wanted to tell the tale in his own way, in his own world. If it happened to conform to superhero things, okay. But it wasn't something that he was trying to make a mark in, like, say, the MCU. I have to make my mark in all of the franchise of all the superhero fandom out there. He just said, I wanted to pay tribute, but I wanted it to be my Batman. And it was just
Yeah, actually,
awesome.
for that, I believe the book I was reading, the Nolan Variations, what was going on at the time was he was trying to pitch Inception to the studios, and Warner Brothers was kind of interested, but really they were just like, okay, you've got something under your belt. We do have this project. It's Batman. Would you want to do it? And he was like, yes. And then from
Yeah.
that point on, he was like, how can I really make this grounded in reality? And that was his whole thing was he was like, I want to believe that this is possible, like truly, truly and honestly possible.
Right.
And I think he showed throughout this series that like he was dedicated to realism within the context of a superhero movie, which
Yeah.
honestly changed superhero movies.
I agree. I
Absolutely.
think I think this is the most realistic superhero movie that has ever been made. You believe that Batman can exist in our world, that he lives in our world, that these things could happen, and it's not like watching Guardians of the Galaxy or Spider Man or whatever. You
Mm-hmm.
feel the difference in the way the world is between those. Even though what's silly about that is like, Spider-Man takes place in New York, in real New York, and Batman takes place in Gotham City. But I feel like Gotham City is more real than the New York and Spider-Man movies, which I think
Yeah.
is super
Yeah.
weird to say, but it's like it was the most realistic one. And it's the movie where if you're a kid watching that, you go, I could actually be Batman. Like I could be Batman
Yeah.
because he could do these things, and this is real stuff. I mean, it shows him trying to figure out how to make the mask and the cowl and all that stuff, and what he has to go through to design it and break them and all. It's like you could see the work put into it. It's
Right.
really amazing. So
Yeah. Going still into the cast, I looking back in 2023, I noticed Katie Holmes this time around. I can't say Katie Holmes did awful, but I also can't say she was amazing.
she wasn't a good pick.
She was just Katie Holmes, and I think that I hate to say that because I feel I don't want to dismiss any actor and their hard work, but I feel Katie Holmes. I'm torn between whether she was a good choice, but then I also can't think of what other choice for that type of character, and I don't know if it's that much of a powerful character to begin with, being a childhood friend. So I would say that would be my only complaint. Katie Holmes just kind of took me away from this world a little bit the more I saw her. And like I said, I don't hate her. It's not like I dislike her. I think she just really didn't cement this whole Nolan world that he had created. You guys think she was necessary? Her character?
No, I don't think so. But what's funny is watching it in 2005 and being a fan of The Last Samurai. I was like, oh, maybe that's how it happened, right? Because Ken Watanabe was in this movie as well, and he was in The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I'm like, maybe that's the connection. Now, I also remember being upset in the movie theater, thinking that they were going to make Ken Watanabe actually Ra's al Ghul, and I was like, he's not really
Right.
Asian. I don't know what's wrong with you guys.
I
Why are
know.
you doing
I
this?
know.
I thought they were like, yellow washing, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to
Right.
do this? And then when we get the twist, and I'm like, oh, we're good.
It would
My
make
bad.
more sense. Ra's
Yeah,
al
yeah,
Ghul, as far as I know, is supposed to be Egyptian.
yeah.
That's what I knew in the comics. I don't know again how much applying Nolan wanted to do on that, but yeah, I think. I mean, let's get into, since we're still in casting. Liam Neeson. I mean, he yet again a phenomenal actor. I don't know if I think he's I think he's phenomenal for the films that he was in. I don't think that I would consider him an every film kind of guy that could turn a movie around. I still think he's a great actor, but you can put Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Gary Oldman in anything, and they're going to raise a caliber, of acting and the movie quality. But Liam Neeson, okay, he did great. I think that he captured the Ra's al Ghul character the way I remember from comics and even the animated series. I think it's right on point. I can't think of a better cast for that one. I think that was a good choice. Before that, I think I want to say it was just episode 1 Star Wars that I had seen him in. So yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn. So how does this film, Kai, I'm going to ask you this one. How does Batman Begins compare, looking back, to other Nolan films? What would you say about that?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's weirdly enough, it's like separate from Nolan movies, but also very much Nolan, if that makes sense. Like I feel like um I'm just, we're all so used to seeing what's in Nolan's head, like in an original form, not based on any other IP. So it's like a separate world to be in something that already has established IP that you're just adding to. Um, so I think that in terms of a Nolan film, I feel like it's more on the side of like a classic Hollywood movie than what I expect a Nolan movie to be now.
If you were to
But
take
I
out
still
the
think it's
elements,
great.
if you were to take out the elements of Batman, and you were to just see this as a raw screenplay written by Nolan, and I don't believe this one was written by Nolan, but if it was to be in the style of Nolan's vision without a Batman franchise tied, what would you say about this film if the protagonist was just a mystery man or a detective story. What would you say about that?
I'd still, I still think that this movie would hold up even without the Batman IP attached to it. I think that the story of like becoming what you fear and like overcoming that fear by confronting it and becoming it, I think is really powerful. So I think that even without Batman attached to it, I think it would be a good film. I think I would be confused why it's a Nolan film. But I think it would still hold up.
Yeah, I think that there's a good quality of filmmaking, and I try to when I do watch this movie, I especially this time I removed the Batman element, and I thought this is so something he would do, Nolan, and this is so something that he could tell this story, I think, normally. I think that this is something that was very on par with his style. But that's not the case. I mean, the case is this is a major franchise. This is something that was dead for more than, I want to say, 7 years, maybe 8 years that it was dead after Batman and Robin, and he more or less resurrected it. I mean, single-handedly. What are some standout moments, James, for the movie for you upon rewatching it this time around?
Oh man. Well, the first time that he dons, the full thing and he goes and fights in that the first time he does that. When he also the tumbler, the first time you see the tumbler, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever."
Right.
And just like you felt like you could like again, like Batman lived in your world. There was never a part of it where I didn't feel like, "Oh, if I went to Gotham, aka New York right now, there's Batman lives there. Like he's there. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I felt like. Just everything about Christian Bale, he played the dual personality so well on both sides. He played the guy who doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne, but has to put on the facade, right? Has to pretend that he's rich and goes out with models and does stupid stuff, so drives a sports car because he has to put on the facade. But the facade, the mask that Batman actually wears is the Bruce Wayne mask. Bruce, like he really is Batman. Like that's who he really is. He has to wear Bruce Wayne in public to disguise Batman. And I think we forget that. I think often, especially with like Superman, right? When you bring Superman into things, we know him as Clark Kent, and then he turns into Superman, right? But with Batman, he's Batman who has to turn into Bruce Wayne, and he did such a good job of wearing the fake mask of Bruce Wayne to like play. You could see that he was playing Bruce Wayne more than he was playing Batman, and that to me was like the part that kept standing out to me is that he had to work. He almost watched like Christian Bale work harder to play Bruce Wayne than he did to play Batman. Like it seemed like Batman just came naturally to him, and so that's what stood out to me the most, and that's why I liked it. That's why I liked about it. That's why I think Nolan was perfect for this because he was telling you that Batman is really who he is, and Bruce Wayne's the mask that he has to wear
Right.
in order to live in society. And I think that we all wear certain masks to get on in society to get people to like us or to be able to do the things you want to do and move through the world. And it's a
Right.
really good metaphor for that.
Absolutely. That's all the positives, and it's funny because I have so many positive things to say that
I can't think
kind
of
of
a
I
negative
kind of
really, besides Katie Holmes.
I made some notes of negatives. I actually made some notes of
Oh,
negatives. Yeah, and you know how much of a
okay.
hardcore Batman fan I am. So I had to write down at least one that
Okay.
stuck with me in 2023 that it was cringy to see Christian Bale playing a college kid.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what
I
I'm
didn't even
talking
think
about,
about
Kai.
that.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. I think it was extremely laughable as it was about as laughable. I mean, I'm a 90s guy, right? So I remember that it's about as laughable for me as middle-aged actors playing teenagers in Beverly Hills
Hills
90210. It's like
90210.
you're 45 and you're supposed to be in high school. Um, it was cringy for me. I mean, I get it. Christian Bale, I mean, he did great, but there was no CG in this movie. And if there was, it was probably next to nothing. And which is a major, major plus about this. And I wanted to add that. You look back at, I don't know, Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. Those are great movies, they're classic. Lots of dated CGI. You know it. You see it. You're like, oh wow, we've come a long way. It doesn't mean that you don't hate. I mean, it doesn't mean you hate the film. It's just it doesn't hold up in the same way. And I think that not using CGI in Batman Begins was probably the greatest move he could have ever made to make this a little more timeless. It gives you more bang for your buck as far as the time, and you can still appreciate it for that realism even all this time later. Um, any standout moments for you, Kai, rewatching it recently? I know it's been a little bit since
Yeah.
you've seen it, but
No, the thing that really stood out to me was, and I just like thought that this was great in terms of realism, but not making Batman and his tech stuff like super fancy, like I loved that they were very military, obviously, because with Lucius Fox, and kind of the military program and all that, and like so the tech being very military and realistic was so interesting because I feel like in most Batman, content before that, it was just the most wild things you could think of, and it was a fancy Batmobile car, and all those things, and so like to have such a rugged feel to this tech and his suit and everything, that was just really cool. And I just remember being a kid and being like obsessed with the world that Nolan created for this Batman. So, and this comes later, but like when we had the whole Man of Steel kind of take over the DC universe, and then we have a new Batman and everything. I was like just kind of a little disappointed in like where that Batman had gone, and it wouldn't really make sense for the Christopher Nolan Batman to live in the Man of Steel world, but I think it could have worked, and I think it would have been
I
really
think so
really
too.
cool.
I agree.
But
Snyder,
yeah,
Snyder and Nolan are like to me
they're
parallel.
good
They're
friends.
they're good friends, obviously, but they're very
Yeah,
parallel to me where they could just connect. If it needed
yeah,
to be, they could connect in a world where both of those visions would be a very beautiful thing to see. That would be an amazing thing. Though I know Nolan
100%.
has had his hand as producer with some of his films, but to see those
yeah,
two collaborate is truly amazing. Um, when you talked about the tech, I am grateful yet of another thing. I am grateful that there's no shark repellent. These corny, cheesy bat gadgets. Just thinking about the campy stuff. This is a whole different thing. This is now, like you said, Kai, very military gear. It was very realistic. It was stuff that I mean, it was truly believable, and it was very convincing. And to what you said, James, this movie it made you feel I have a way of becoming Batman apparently because I can do
Yep.
all this if I had money and I had the right people to go to, and just that realism to make you feel that. I mean, Nolan, I mean, you basically won us over in the movie theater. It's like you've convinced us that this is something that you can do, and that creates an engaging film. And now you cannot tear your eyes away from that screen. And that to
Yeah.
me is a truly epic, director to be able to do that. But it had all the right elements. So
Here's the craziest part. I know we're gonna get into this when we get to the other two Batmans. This, unfortunately, and I love this one, is the actual weakest of all three of them to me. Like as great as this one is, it's the weakest. That's the craziest part about the whole thing is this is a fantastic film. I mean, to build the whole Batman ethos, the whole world, everything in this film. But the next two blow this movie away to where you go, holy cow, did he really do that in this movie? Did he do that in this movie? Like, it's just a whole different level. It's almost like he's like, I have to nail the base level Batman for everybody. If I can nail
right.
the base level Batman for everybody, then I can go extreme, right? And get crazy on the second one. And then the third one, I can get insane with it. And then you go, man, those movies are so good. The Dark Knight trilogy is like the best trilogy there is. And keep in mind, I love the Matrix trilogy. I love the original 3 Star Wars, right? I love all that stuff. This is my favorite trilogy of all time. There is no better trilogy to me.
You're like my
Hey,
best friend. No, I totally
I'm just
agree.
serious. I'm serious.
that's
No,
insane.
there is no. I don't know anyone that feels differently except the internet.
Yeah.
People that these
Come at me, internet. Come
these
at me.
trolls, I mean, just come out for all of it. And I mean, for me,
Well, I guess I'm a troll because
Oh,
hey, you were
to
10
me
years old.
the
Okay.
best trilogy to me is the most recent Planet of the Apes trilogy. I
That
think
was truly
they're
epic.
just
Yeah.
incredible.
Those were
that's
really amazing.
those are good. I will give you that, but
Yeah.
they're not on the same levels. This
You have
they're
you have to have a certain love for Batman too, I think, where
yeah.
That's
you
fair.
have
I
to be
probably
partial.
don't have that, but I do
Right.
love Nolan.
Right. And that's
Okay.
where the connection would lie, where it would gain an audience like you, Kai. Because
Yeah.
if you're not the hugest fan of Batman, it's enough to get your attention if it's made the right way.
Yeah.
This movie, well, I'll just go ahead and ask it. This is my next question for both of you. How did this movie connect or fail to connect with you? And this is essentially what I'm already getting into with Kai, but let's start off with you, James. How did this movie either connect or fail to connect with you in general?
Well, I mean, it totally connected me with me. This was the realest Batman we've seen. Again, I grew up on Michael Keaton Batman, right? So keep in mind, the first Batman that I ever remember seeing was that Michael Keaton Batman and the Batman with Tim. Why am I going
Tim
blank on his
Burton.
name? Tim Burton's
Yeah.
first Batman, and then Batman Returns. Those, when I was a kid, were my favorite two Batman movies. I was like, this is great. I could watch these forever, right? And then this movie comes, and I go, those movies suck. Not to be mean, like I love Tim Burton, and those movies will always still have a great place in my heart. But this movie blew that away. And also for me, this was the first time that I ever heard of Christopher Nolan. Like that I remember, I might have like watched Memento and thought about it, but I didn't really know who he was. But this made me go, who is this guy? And how could he make one of the best Batmans of all time?
Right.
And it just changed my perspective on filmmaking. Keep in mind, one of my heroes of filmmaking is Kevin Smith, right? And then followed by Quentin Tarantino, and now Christopher Nolan, right? That's a big jump in styles and changes there. So you can see there's something great here in Nolan that makes a world. He's a world builder, whereas most people want to build characters. They want to say, "Oh, this is the character," and the world's there, but this is the character, and that's what you need to care about. You care about the entire world of Gotham City. You in that moment where they want to, Scarecrow's taking over and everything is going crazy, and they're doing all this stuff, and the League of Shadows is all there. You don't want Gotham to disappear. You're like, this is Batman's home. Like, how can it disappear? You can't destroy everything. We got to protect this world. That's what you care about. With Superman, like you go, oh, I hope Superman doesn't die to Doomsday or Lex Luthor or whatever. You don't really care about Metropolis. Seriously, you don't. You just
Superman
don't
hate
care.
going on here.
I'm not. I don't hate Superman, but to me is like, it feels like, when you're a kid and you play like the pretend game. You're like, hey, I'm going to be this thing and you're going to be that thing. And then you go, and I have this power, 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 and I have this. It's just like some kid got all the powers, and then everyone's left with like, I have claws and an adamantium skeleton. That's all I have. Like, you know what I'm saying? But this guy can fly and shoot lasers and freeze with his breath and all, you know what I'm saying? It's too much. Batman or Superman's too much, and Batman is like, oh, you could be that, right? So
right. You see, Superman has everything, and Batman literally has almost nothing. Except
he has to use his wits, right? He has to use his wits and whatever he can find around him. But he has beat Superman in a fight several times, actually.
Yeah.
And he could beat every single member of the Justice League. All right, this is going to get too nerdy at this point. But he knows everyone's weakness. And Batman, as a man, a human being man, with the only skills that he has is he has money and he's learned a lot. And he's the world's greatest detective. But those three things versus people with powers beyond imagination, and he could still win. That should tell you something. And in this Batman, this Christopher Nolan Batman, you feel like this is the Batman that could beat everybody if he had to.
Yeah. You said it. You said it best.
Now Kai's going to tear me down.
Where I feel personally, I'll jump in with you on that. Where it connected with me is that to capture okay, so I'm going to go off of something you said earlier, James. And when it came to being the weakest of this trilogy, I don't know if I entirely agree. And the reason why, because the other two are more epic. Now, as a fan and as a fan of filmmaking, I think the hardest thing and the biggest task is not only to restart something that was god awful already at the end, but you're trying to tell an origin. Now, the origin is, mind you, no pressure. We're talking since 1938.
Yeah.
And you're going to mess with that? You have our attention, Christopher Nolan, and you're going to go into this story that isn't just like any other Batman tale you can tell, because there's many Batman movies or episodes of an animated series that can be produced because it's another adventure. You have to be witty with your writing and make sure it sounds good and kind of fun, but also dark and mysterious. This isn't just a normal Batman story. This is the beginning. So I would say it's the most important of the trilogy. I don't know if I would say it's the best, but it to me, it connected to me that this was a very special reserved place, this film, the way it was made, because of the way you could tell this origin. It was really well done. So
No, I agree with you.
I'll go with that.
It is the most important one. I agree 100%. But you could tell that Nolan had to, like I said, he had to build that base. He had to build your
Right.
trust, right? He had to
Right.
say, "Hey guys, trust me with Batman, and then I'm going to show you the most epic Batman you're ever going to see ever in your life after that." And
Absolutely.
he did.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, Kai, let's hear you bag on it
Yeah,
now.
Kai, let's hear you bag on the bats. Let's go.
No, no, I'm not gonna bag on it, but
I'm just kidding.
I I will just say I think because I not like a huge Batman fan outside of the Nolan movies.
Mhm.
Um, I I had no idea who Ra's al Ghul was. So the villain didn't really like it. It just didn't capture me. I think that probably people who knew Ra's al Ghul were like insanely excited because like and I get this like when my fiance and I go to movies with her brother's like a huge comic book like lover, and like we'll be sitting in the theater and he'll be like, oh my god, that person in the background, he was in this issue, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I would never know.
Right.
So I think to me, um probably one of the reasons why I did like the Dark Knight was because the Joker, I mean, everyone knows Batman and the Joker. They're like the two, you know.
Right.
And so I think I was already super excited to see the Joker reimagined. And so with Batman Begins, I was just kind of like, I was like, I don't know who this Ra's al Ghul guy is. I don't really, you know, I have no excitement for it. I don't really know what it's gonna take for Batman to overcome this evil. Um, and honestly, still without having like I've never done any research about the origins of Ra's al Ghul or anything like that. So still to this day when I watch it, it just does not excite me. It doesn't get me going. I don't think I really ever cared about this villain. And I feel like for a superhero movie, you have to care about the villain as much as you care about your hero.
Right.
Not like you have to love him and empathize with him or anything like that, but you have to like be so interested in the villain that you're like excited for the hero to take this on. And so I think I was just like mostly confused for a lot of the movie of like what like where we were going and what the like stakes were and what we were going for. And I think it's just hard starting a franchise. Obviously, you have to build trust with the audience and change up, some lore, which at this point, like Nolan's Batman is the only lore really that I know. So if you guys want to educate me on how he has deviated from what the original lore was, I'd love to hear it. But I do think that just purely it was just like Ra's al Ghul not being very interesting to me, and that was pretty much it. Like for some
Yeah.
reason, I think uh, I think it just didn't have the star power that maybe a non-Batman fan would need to like be excited about going to see this film.
I can totally understand that. Actually, it's more to me that when you, like you just said yourself, you knew who the Joker was. You knew more or less his MO. That created a really interesting vibe with the world he created, Nolan. And I think that that's something that excited you because you knew the character, you knew the possibilities. As a Batman fan, I will speak for myself. I'm sure James, you knew who Ra's al Ghul was. I think what it was is, and I agree with you, Kai. They didn't go too much into the character to make you care, because as fans, we knew who he was, we knew the capabilities, we knew the story. So that's where this movie fell short for a non-Batman fan, because this is something that is missing character development for the one that does not know this entire Batman world. So Nolan approached this, just, I guess you could say, if I was in your point of view in this and I didn't know anything about Batman, I would say Ra's al Ghul was a very B character. It was very B rated in the sense that there was not much that we knew about him. There wasn't enough to intrigue, and there was enough that you knew that he was just the bad guy. That was about it. And that was something that I would say probably Nolan kind of dropped the ball a bit on, but there was also so much on his shoulders that on this one, I guess I would be forgiving about that one, but I can see where you're coming from. I definitely can.
Yeah, Ra's al Ghul is like a deep cut Batman villain. You know what I'm saying? Like he's this guy, but if you'd have to go back to like Frank Miller's Batman Year One and stuff like that to really kind of like understand. And he did use that as inspirations along with like the Long Halloween, and I forgot what the other one was, but he used like 3 different Batman stories to build this story. So he went deep cuts, right? Because most people who are like regular Batman fans have never read like Frank Miller's Batman Year One. Like you're not going to read that book, right? Unless you're like a hardcore Batman fan.
Right.
And so, yes, it was too hard to do a deep cut. He probably should have done Ra's al Ghul and then some other better known villain than the Scarecrow, right? Like somebody else. That should have been like the introduction of Catwoman, right? Like he comes back, here's Ra's al Ghul here's Catwoman. He's chasing her for this reason. Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows is also chasing her for the same reason. She has something they want that could change the world. He has something that she has something that Batman has to get away from her because it will change the world. And now we have the clash, right? That would have been the better way to go. Introducing her later on is fine, but that would have been probably the better villain story, 2 villains to go, and then bring Scarecrow later on to be accomplice with Bane, right? That would have been a better thing where like him and Bane are working together to do destruction. Bane's doing the physical stuff, he's doing the psychological stuff. They're messing with the whole city, and that's how that works. The Joker on his own, he doesn't need anyone else ever. Like you have the Joker, you don't need anyone else. I would have loved to see a Harley Quinn in that one, but whatever. We're not gonna pick it apart at that point. But it was too deep of a cut too early, right? If you weren't going to bring a major Batman villain, because Scarecrow is even not a major Batman villain. Like he's like, yeah, okay, he's like B or C when you get down to the villains. Like Joker's always number 1 and Catwoman's there. And then, even Bane is kind of like a B or C unless you're like going to like where the Dark Knight, where he gets his back broken and that stuff. And that's a whole big series.
That's a whole other thing.
But if you don't know about that, then you go, who's this guy? Right. And so, it's kind of
like,
weird.
Even like Penguin or the Riddler.
Yeah.
Like those would have been also known, to me. So that's why, like, when I was watching The Batman with, I want to say Edward Cullen, but I know it's not.
I don't even know his name. Yeah, Robert Pattinson. Who's not a bad Batman, by the way, actually. He's probably...
I enjoyed that Batman a lot, actually. And
worst Riddler ever, though. But no offense.
Because I watched, because Batman Begins, I was 10 years old and, not really the biggest Batman fan. Obviously, now when the Batman comes out, I have seen all the Nolan films. Like, I am a casual Batman fan now. So now when I see that, like, oh, the Penguin is going to be in this one, and it's like kind of a reboot, I'm still excited. And so when I watched that movie, I was like, wow, like, first of all, that villain was awesome. And to have the Riddler too, and like it was just, it was just like a cool dive into like what casual Batman fans would know, but like in a new way. And so like literally maybe casual, maybe like I'm not even a casual Batman fan if I don't know who Ra's al Ghul is, but like
it's a real deep cut. Like you don't have to like apologize. No.
And
you don't have to apologize for that.
I can see why you would say all that, Kai, honestly, and I can also understand why Nolan would choose that, because we're going intellectual. He likes kind of darker characters, but it's a safe choice because we're not going to the more obvious to the studios when he's approaching a Batman film. He's not going to do a Joker right now. He's not going to do a Riddler just played by Jim Carrey a couple movies ago. So he's going to choose a different one. And I can see why he would do that. But I think there should have been a little more backstory, a little more intrigue. I think he was busy telling the story of Bruce Wayne and it needed to front and center. So I think at that point it was like well, Ra's al Ghul, you know who he is. Hopefully, if not, then hopefully you'll appreciate the rest around it. I think that's what he was thinking.
I mean, it's a 140-minute movie already. Like if you have to add Ra's al Ghul's backstory and the Lazarus Pit and all the other things that you have to put in for Ra's al Ghul, it's going to be 220 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's too hard to do, and I understand it. Now, also, no offense, Kai, I know that you watched the Batman, you like it. That's the worst Riddler version ever created. Even worse than Jim Carrey's Riddler version. I'm sorry, and I'm a huge fan of the Riddler because the Riddler is Batman's smartest enemy. Overall, he's the only person that can match Batman intellectually, and so I did not like that.
I strongly disagree with you. Strongly.
Really?
Paul Dano is to me an amazing actor, but
he's a great actor.
We'll get into that another time.
Yeah, but that's not the Riddler, man. It's just not okay.
I hear you, and that's also a different universe.
Yes, I agree.
Comics, so okay, fair enough. A very fair question, I would say, right now to address as we're getting close to the end of this. How do you guys think now in 2023 that this movie, particularly Batman Begins, forgetting about The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, if we were to isolate this film only, how do you think this movie impacted the Batman franchise, the mythos, the overall character going forward from here? What do you guys think about that? Hi, what do you say?
First. Yeah, I mean, I think I love going first because you guys are like, what does Kai have to say?
You give us a lot to feed on here to talk back with you.
This is great. I could talk about Star Wars now.
I'm gonna just spat my drink. Yeah, we went into that. That'd be another 2 hours.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that it honestly like changed everything. I really do think Batman, I mean, if it weren't for Batman Begins, I don't even think I would be a casual Batman fan. Like I think he's cool. I think he's a cool villain or hero. Depends on how he thinks.
Depends on how you see that. I like how you get that.
But I think that those, specifically Batman Begins, with its contribution to superhero movies and its realism, I think that really impacted Hollywood in a big way and the superhero industry. And I think that, listen, because I'm not really the biggest Batman fan, I don't really know how it changed his origin or any of the mythos around his character. But I will say, and maybe this speaks enough about it, Nolan's mythos for Batman to me is the only mythos. And that probably says a lot, if just casual people who, like superheroes, but aren't crazy about them. If that's truth for them, then I'd say that was a huge win,
Yeah.
And I'd say that changed a lot and probably brought a lot of casual superhero fans into the fandom just because it made it a little bit more accessible, I feel like.
What say you, James?
I agree that it did bring more Batman fans into it. And it also did something that none of the other Batman movies have ever done, which is show Batman becoming Batman, the process, right? We usually just see his parents die. Next thing you know, he's Batman, right? And you go, well, how did he learn all that stuff? Where did that come from? This tells you these guys trained him, right? He went off on his own journey, but this is where the hardcore training came from. was the League of Shadows. That's where he got it from. This is the baseline Batman, right? That's Batman baseline is League of Shadows Batman, right? Then he goes off on his own. Now it's year one Batman. He's trying to figure this stuff out. He's got to do it on his own. He has no one to fall back on. He doesn't have all the ninjas and assassins and all the group of the other. So yeah, it gives a better mythos, I would say, of Batman than before. And also, what it does is what you no one else realizes, I think, is that this Batman, this Nolan film, set up the universe that happens in DC currently, where Damian, his son, comes from I think her name is Talia al Ghul, who's
Right.
Ra's al Ghul's daughter, who had a baby with Batman, and now Damian is the rightful heir to the cowl, right? It's just like this movie set that emotion with where Ra's al Ghul was like, he's a so-so character, to now he's the main portion of Batman's backstory, and it changes how we view that character and how we view the actual growth of Batman and how he became Batman, right? Like,
Right.
you could say, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne's rich and he has all these gadgets, and that's how they usually get away with it. Is like he has all these gadgets, like he's James Bond, or whatever, and that's how Batman's so amazing. He has all the gadgets, but really, he had to build himself up. The main base of Batman is his skill, his intellect, his strength, his own personal perseverance. That's what makes him so amazing, right? That's why, again, that's not to knock Superman, but having Superman have a bajillion abilities versus Batman being a man that has intellect and physical skill and scientific skills and that stuff makes me think Batman's a better character overall.
Right.
So
I can see that.
No offense on Superman. I'm sorry.
I can see what you're doing here about Superman this whole time. You have an agenda here. Superman sucks.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just filling words here. Beyond the entertainment factor, though, at this movie, I typically ask this with all the movies. Beyond the entertainment part of the movie, do we see a value or understanding? Does this have value or understanding for you in regards to our current human condition, the world? What would you guys say? I mean, I can kick it off, I guess. I would just say, going back to also answering two questions in one, the impact that this movie has done has changed, like you said, Kai, everything forever. This movie had a lot of different elements that Nolan brought in, different graphic novels, different story arcs, made it his own thing. I see everyone in every studio, Warner Brothers, Paramount, wherever, looking to make another hero movie after this, and they're like, oh. And they're like, that bar is thanks Christopher Nolan, it's really high now. Now we have to go much higher. Some have attempted to go that epicness and kind of fell short of it. I mean, in comparison, I mean, there's been other epic superhero movies, but I know for a fact, I just know it, that these directors, these producers looked at this as a guide and to say, this is where it went well. How can we sort of emulate what was done here? And with that in mind, with that impact, the value I say this movie has is really, really, really high, because not only did it get people like Kai Patterson to come to the movies, get excited for The Dark Knight, going to a character that was more or less known to someone like him, who isn't like, let's just say, another geek, or you could put me in that if you want, ultra geek, that then appeal to every comic book reader. And you got the best of both audiences, the best of both worlds. And I think that is major value. And this is something that will hold up for a long time. In terms of understanding the human condition, the world, I mean, it goes without saying. You see things like crime, poverty. These things are overlooked. This is your classic Zorro story tale. Like you're getting someone, a vigilante, to act upon the things he sees wrong and fixes it, or at least attempts to the point where he breaks every bone of his body to sacrifice himself. Huge role model for kids to know that this is something that if you cannot get the help you need, and that should be, I think, in my opinion, where you go first. You go seek the help you need, whether it's police, mental health, whatever you need. If you can't get it there, you do what's right, and you know what is right. And these morals, I think, are just really great to our human condition and world for people I wish were more like that.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. What's funny is if this movie came out this year, you would not know the difference.
Absolutely.
That's the craziest part
That's
of
the
it. This is
craziest
almost
thing about
a,
it.
t- a
Yeah.
timeless Batman movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, if you said, hey, this movie came out in 2023, I'd go, okay. And I believe it 100%.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part is not, you can't say that for every other superhero movie. There is some kind of timestamp in it that makes you go, things have really changed.
Yeah.
This movie, there's not a timestamp on that. That is the craziest part to me. Even if you go back and watch Tim Burton stuff and some of the other Batman films, or even the Marvel films, there's a timestamp on it where you go, yeah, that's dated. That's a dated movie. You know,
They
this is
use
not a dated
jokes,
movie.
references that's so 2010 or
Yeah.
certain outfits. You're like, oh, that's early 2000s. And again, it's not to knock those films because they're great.
No,
But
not at all.
like you said, this is timeless. Like this is believable. It's a world he created.
Yeah. Kai, what do you think?
Yeah, I think honestly, like watching it again, it it has a lot of relevance to today. And I feel like um just like the community aspect of Batman. I remember reading in the Nolan variations, Nolan's like main concern was like, how do you like a billionaire who like has problems? You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, boo hoo, you've got $1 billion. Like you've got real problems, don't you? But like he finds a way to make you empathize with this character and show you like the importance of like reinvesting in your community basically. And you see that a lot with his father too, you know. Uh, one of the biggest standouts is in the flashback when they're on the train, and he's talking about how he built this train because he wanted to help the people that couldn't afford to, you know, travel across the city and stuff. And to see like somebody with so much power and wealth doing something for their community, and obviously that sentiment gets passed down into Bruce and how he sees the city. Even though I think what really stands out for this movie, um, minus the Batman IP, is just like the idea of being kind of over the community that raised you, you know, and then just kind of like leaving and letting it die, you know, and then later coming back and the people that you left are like, hey, you know, you left us and you had power to do something. And like,
Right.
why, you know, it's never too late to do something, but like it really really does make you confront your privilege too. And I feel like privilege, especially in 2023, is such a huge thing to identify and look at in your own world, to see where do I have privilege and where can I redistribute that privilege to benefit my community. And I think that that's like one of the biggest standouts for how this movie adds value not only to the world, but like, I mean, obviously Batman is a huge franchise and a lot of people know it. And so being able to like have such a, you know, progressive view on community from a billionaire and to have so many people listen to this story, I think is really beneficial for everyone.
Beautifully
I
said.
like
Love it. Love it. This is coming from a non-hardcore Batman fan, mind you, James.
it.
Take
Yeah.
notes, James. We are now at the finale. We have reached the finale of our episode here. As you know, we have a very super scientific, complicated way of rating this. It's just 1 through 10. How would you guys rate Batman Begins isolated into just the film, not franchise? What would you say, James? Give me a number and tell me why.
This is always a 9 for me, and it's always a 9 for me because it's the best Batman. Like it literally is the best Batman origin story. You get so much more out of it. You feel the world, like Kai said. You see so many elements in this that make it better than a Batman story. Yes, Batman is at the center of it, But if you took Batman away and this was a story about a billionaire who went back to go save his city and he had to do these extreme things to do it, it would still work as a movie. And so for me, it's not. It's a 9.
Guy, give me your realistic Christopher Nolan realism score on this
Yeah,
one.
it's a 9. Oh wait, flip it. It's a 6.
All
Oh,
right, are we
Yeah,
at
I
6?
give it a 6 out of 10.
wow.
Because to me, out of like, I'd say like an 8 out of 10 for me is like, oh, I can rewatch that. Like, I really could at any time. 6 out of 10 for me is like, I'll rewatch it maybe once every 5 years, maybe.
Wow.
And to me, it just doesn't have that like rewatchability for me. Doesn't capture me like I would want it to. So for me, yeah,
I
6
actually
out of
really
10.
love that you have something
Crazy.
different to say, honestly. I'm really intrigued by your dissecting of this stuff, Kai, because I know that you have a very different approach to film, and I know that you have a different approach even in this point of view now. I've learned something new about you. This is something that you give no regard to what has happened in the franchise. You don't give regard to what a story like this would mean. You're purely seeing this out of the demographic that Nolan would try to appeal for audience members that would not know anything about Batman. And that's a very fair score, I would say, knowing the background I know of you and that approach of the film. I mean, I would say it's better than a 5. Definitely
Well,
better than a
I
5.
want to know what the movie is that you'll rewatch anytime. What is your 9 movie? Like, I
Yeah,
guess
let's
that's
hear a
probably a good
9.
question.
Oh, my 9 movie is Jurassic Park
Jurassic Park. I
and
knew it.
honestly Dark Knight too.
And wait, what? And what else?
Dark Knight, I can rewatch at any
Oh,
point.
okay, okay. But Jurassic Park. All right. Okay.
No, I gotta agree with Kai on this one. I definitely would say that's so rewatchable.
That I mean, it is.
Yeah,
It's just so funny that
Yeah,
that's the one. That's your first one. I was like
yeah.
Jurassic Park. Oh, really?
I had a feeling you'd say that one, Kai.
I thought you
yeah.
were gonna.
If
No
you if
offense,
you know
Kai.
any if you know anything about me, that is the least surprising answer I've ever said to any answer.
What's funny is I thought you were gonna say like something that I like either A had never seen or something so amazing, like such an amazingly like her picture perfect film. Like Jurassic Park's not like beautiful and I mean it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I love Jurassic Park and I've watched it a million times. But I was thinking like I don't know, not that you would say this, but like Schindler's List or something like artsy and smart. I don't know why. I just thought like you would say something like
No,
that like wouldn't appeal to a dumb person like me because
no,
you're much smarter than I am.
no. I think the thing that I like, I'm a total. I'm not a film snob. You know what I mean? Like I
I guess
love
that's what I was thinking.
movies that are entertaining to me, and I mean I think some people probably call me a film snob because like I can't watch things that I don't like that don't capture me. You know what I mean? Like my fiance, she can watch a dumb movie and she is excited about it because it's just entertainment. But
Well,
like
give me
I
an example dumb movie.
like the Twilight movies.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
You
I'm with you
know,
on that. No, I'm with you on that. 100%. Okay. Good.
Does
Never mind.
anyone in the
so
world
like
think those are smart movies? That would,
no,
No, but
and
women
I
love
don't think that
them.
they're supposed to be, but like to me, I can't watch something that I can't like really get value from. And people are like, well, what value can you get from Jurassic Park? Dinosaurs?
Learning about DNA. Duh.
Yeah.
Everybody. That's where you learned about DNA for the first time. Everyone.
um,
Dino
no,
DNA.
but I think yeah, Schindler's List is a great movie, but like I'm not looking to get depressed every day. You know
No.
what I
Okay.
mean?
I was just. I
Fair
wasn't
point.
sure
Fair
like how
point.
like artsy you were
Yeah.
gonna go. That's why.
Another rewatcher for me, 9 out of 10 movie. Honestly, 10 out of 10. Iron Giant.
Oh.
This
Okay.
really this really says you're a 2000 kid.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's not
Really,
for me, but yeah,
I'm
good
not
for you.
knocking it though.
No. 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 Yeah.
it's I think anything that really, and you'll probably notice this with my other film scores too, is like I need something to like change me emotionally. Like I need that emotional reaction. If by the end of a movie I've like so emotionally invested in the story and the characters and their stakes, that will usually be like an 8 to 9 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Um,
Fair.
so yeah.
Danny, what's
I
your score?
I'm gonna give this movie a 9, just like you, James. I think that I'm flipping that 6 and going back to 9. And no, I just think that, as I've stated already, this movie made a major impact. I don't want to repeat everything I said, but to put it concisely in a pill, we needed this movie really bad. We needed this movie to be retold. The story of Batman was dead in my eyes. It was
Mm-hmm.
only alive in animated series and comics. This was a major success. It built the biggest point of excitement. I think literally the climax at the very end of the film was when you saw him turn over the Joker card, and we thought that we might actually get a Christopher Nolan version of a Joker. So that flipped me just on my side. I just could not believe that that was possibly about to happen. So yeah, absolutely a 9, not quite a 10. I have some complaints, not a lot. That's where I keep it. And I really implore everyone listening that if you enjoy this episode, not only subscribe, not only follow us, but definitely tell us what you thought of this movie. And looking back in 2023, if you have not done it, pop it back in Blu-ray, 4K, whatever you got, stream it.
It's on HBO Max, everybody.
It's on HBO Max. Do it. And I'm really, really curious to know what geeks out there and non-geeks have to say about it. I really want to know in 2023. Definitely appreciate all the comments and the likes. Thank you guys if you're listening, and you know who you are. Before we go, James, where can folks find you on social media?
You can find me at JD Creviston Comedy or at the Queen Comedy Podcast.
Kai, how about you?
You can find me at Kai Patterson Films pretty much everywhere. And if you're looking for something, you can just go to kaipattersonfilms.com. You can also find all of my social media there.
Perfect. You can find me at Damien_DeCarlo on Instagram, also www.makingitgeek.com. Collectively, you can find all of our shenanigans. Until next time, everybody, I would tell this to Batman: keep calm and geek on.
Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night.